I think I've said this before, but I think whether or not you feel like Xbox is doing something that's a little bit different and actually accomplishing something, I think that's those are two different things, kind of. So, I do feel like they're kind of doing some little things here and there, and whether or not they're gonna go full with the full kind of Monty, so to speak, in the showcase, I think that's a little bit more up for debate. I personally feel that they're gonna do like the announcements and play up exclusives that are going to be coming back and things like that. But they have done a long way to kind of get people talking about Xbox again, which I do feel like is a smart thing to do. They've done other things, lowered the price of Game Pass, but if you think about the things that Asha Sharma has done, and I'm not coming down on it because I think it's important to get people's trust back and things like that when it comes to actually doing something like this. When you change leadership and you're trying to say, okay, well, we were wrong in what we were doing, then you have to actually go out there and change things. And so, like, she changed the price of Game Pass, but did she? Right? Like, that's something that I always kind of bring up to people, because what happened was we were paying $30 a month for Game Pass that included Call of Duty, right? Or excuse me, we were paying $20 for that, and then they raised it to $30. And so now they raised it to 23, or lowered it to 23, but they took away Call of Duty. So it's still $3 more than what they raised it up to originally. And, so we're actually paying more than we were, but getting less content. So I think that's something that, like, as fans, we have to look at and say, okay, well, that's a little bit strange, but, I guess I understand it. But there's been other changes too. Obviously they're kind of going through a bit of a rebrand, which I think is much needed. You have to be able to go out there and say, okay, well, what are we going to do to kind of attract people back into what we're trying to, get fans to kind of back into the idea of what we're trying to accomplish. And I feel like that's something that realistically they need to do relatively quickly. That's something for sure that needs to happen. And this news was a little bit kind of surprising, I thought. Like, I didn't think it was a huge deal, to be honest with you, but when you see people kind of talk about it, maybe it is. I don't know. I like, to me, it just seems kind of an interesting piece. But Xbox is rebranding itself, kind of. So Xbox is out, and they renamed it Xbox. So earlier in the week, Asha Sharma put the following question to fans on social media: is it Xbox with a capital X and a lowercase BOX, or is it Xbox all capitals? And pretty much, out of the votes, almost 65% of the total votes wanted it to be Xbox with all capitals. So Microsoft has seemingly taken that to heart by rebranding the account on X with all caps to Xbox. So The Verge is one of the first outlets to notice the change, and it notes that Xbox's Blue Sky and Threads accounts have yet to reflect the slight renaming. When reached out by comment by The Verge, Microsoft directed readers back to Sharma's poll on X. Now, when the original Xbox console was released in 2001, its name was in all caps. The subsequent logos for its successors were also in caps, but the brand was spelled normally by Microsoft. Earlier in the year, Sharma reverted Microsoft's gaming name back to Xbox, so it's entirely possible that the Xbox spelling is back as well. This may be an exercise in rebranding and nostalgia for the time when Xbox was at its peak before the significant declines, which we're kind of still going through right now, but the company has recently suffered hardware and game sales. So shortly after Sharma took over from her predecessor, Phil Spencer, diehard Xbox fan urged her to rethink Microsoft's multi-platform strategy, and of course that brought several formerly exclusive games to PS5, Switch consoles, and things like that. But we have to see how that goes. It may or may not be feasible after the big numbers some of the games made on PS5. But again, you have to look at this from a perspective of what all the games did, not just go, oh, well, Forza Horizon 5 did well, so that means all of them should go there. Like, clearly there's 15 other games that went and didn't do well. So, I mean, you just go to take the one and go, okay, that's worth giving up our entire self-worth and our entire brand. I don't think it is worth it. But Sharma also did kill off the unpopular "This is an Xbox" publicity campaign, which I thought was a very smart thing to do. Basically, you have to go out there and make sure that you have a reason to own your hardware first of all. And I think that's the thing that she kind of screwed up with the most, was there was, like Sarah Bond, there was no real reason to really own the Xbox hardware anymore. And so that's one of the things that I do think that realistically should happen sooner rather than later. You have to have serious talks, and you have to have people talked into buying your platform. Like, as long as you're selling a platform, you have to be able to talk people into buying your platform. And so I think that's where probably some of this discourse came from. And I do hope that Microsoft kind of get back to that, like the reason to own the platform. Like, even in the early days of the Xbox One, they were smart enough to say, okay, well, Xbox is the best place to play. I mean, was it the best place to play? It's hard saying, but at least that was the tagline, and they're like, okay, well, here we are, Xbox is, we're committed to making it the best place to play. And now it was like, no longer that situation, and that is something that they absolutely need to kind of get away from in terms of what they wanted to kind of go out there and push. And hopefully they can go out there and understand that people want a great place to play. They want to feel respected for what they're offering and things like that. So I think that's probably what they need to do most of all. They want to go out there. They want to make sure that that fans know that this is a great place to game, and that they're going to be happy with the Xbox, and that they're going to have reasons to own one. Because like I've said all along, it's you have to be very smart with the way you do these things. And I know, like, I got to be honest with you, I haven't got as much kind of blowback on like X and stuff in years as I have recently, because the reason being is that all I did was talk up how I think Gears of War E-Day is going to be exclusive, and they're gonna bring back exclusives. And then I get like inundated, and it's, listen, nothing personal, mostly it's just like people that try to go, oh well, they can't afford that or whatever. They kind of but the people that say that kind of ignore the facts that if they can afford kind of what's going on right now, then why couldn't they afford exclusives? You know what I mean? Like, how can you afford to continue to put games on PlayStation and have them not sell well and lose your brand identity, right? How can you afford to do that, though? And then the other people that think, oh well, every game should be day and date. Do you guys not understand the undertaking that would take? Even Forza Horizon, as big as a studio as Playground is, couldn't launch Forza Horizon 6 day and date on PlayStation and Xbox. And don't think they didn't want to. Of course they wanted to. Right? And you might go, oh well, they're launching Fable day and date. Fable was originally supposed to launch last year. It got delayed, and supposedly one of the reason why it got delayed was so that it could come out day and date on PlayStation, right? So again, you have to look at that. For them to get all their studios up to snuff to be able to do day and date, they would have to double the workforce on every studio they have, right? So Ninja Theory would have to double their workforce, another 100 people, and you know how expensive that would be, right? And for the games that aren't selling, it doesn't make sense, right? So again, like, a lot of people that want to pretend like they know what's the right thing to do or what should be done, that's not actually the case here. So the way I look at it anyway is that Microsoft is definitely should look at, and I hope that she's looked at, like, all of the actual type of situation where you look at all the numbers, not just, oh, Forza Horizon, oh, that did good, so let's go ahead and run with that one. You know what I'm saying? Like, I just don't think that that's something that that should be done that way. So I actually do think that what we have to do is we have to look at the way that things have kind of been handled and just say, okay, well, give me a reason to buy it. I need exclusives, I need this or I need that, and that's the way it needs to be. And hopefully that's the way that it will be, because I do honestly feel like that's something that Microsoft has kind of failed at lately, is giving people a good enough reason to actually own the platform and to continue to kind of like buy into what they're doing. You know what I'm saying? It's like they're so back and forth on things, and that it makes it kind of a difficult thing to kind of buy into Xbox, and that's, I think, the real tough part with all of this stuff. So I don't know. I would love to hear your guys' thought process on this. Realistically, I think Microsoft still has a long way to go. Just renaming something doesn't change it. It's actually like the bigger actions down the line. I think like they have to go into it and think, okay, well, it's going to take us a while to win people's trust and stuff like that, but at the end of the day, that's what we got to do, even if it costs us a little bit of money. So anyway, I'll link this. You guys can let me know what you think. Rack 'em up. Crap Gamer out.